Mangwana ni malalepofu kenjani xexwa sivana Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Diana Master. How are you, Diana?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Oh, fantastic.
It's great to host with you. It's been a minute since we've hosted.
Yes, yes. And I love this routine because it assumes we weren't talking at all prior to the camera. And that's what I love about television.
I mean, true.
Right?
All right, let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. Zuma's private prosecution of Ramaphosa set aside with costs. There's a deadline on Africa's contested borders, and Zimbabwe declares its own load shedding over, but locals are skeptical. We'll also be speaking to Talent Gore as she gives us the full story on this and more stories from Zimbabwe. Stick around, we'll be back with our top stories right after this break.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouthwatering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
All right, we start off in South Africa, where former President Jacob Zuma's private prosecution of his successor Cyril Ramaphosa has been declared unlawful and unconstitutional and has been set aside. The Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg also ordered that Zuma pays Ramaphosa's costs. Zuma launched his private prosecution in December last year on the eve of the ANC's National Elective Conference, in which Ramaphosa was competing for the party's leadership, eventually successfully. Zuma accused Ramaphosa of being an accessory after the fact to crimes committed, among others, Advocate Downer, alleged breaches of the National Prosecuting Authority Act. Advocate Billy Downer is prosecuting Zuma on behalf of the state for arms deal-related corruption. Now, Zuma is seeking to privately prosecute Downer and News 24 specialist legal writer Karen Morgan for allegedly violating the act by sharing court documents.
Moving over, deadline on Africa's contested borders nears. African countries have only 4 years from now to resolve their disputed borderlines. The deadline set for the demarcation or refixing of the territorial boundaries that have been disputed by nations is 2027. This was revealed by a representative of the African Union during the launch of a peace caravan aimed at addressing the matter. A senior official of the African Union, Frederick Gateretse Ngoga, on Sunday said the continental body was keen to ensure this was done, even though only a few countries have ratified a convention to that effect. The Niamey Convention, which aims to ensure the peaceful resolution of border disputes, has been signed by 18 out of the 55 AU member states to date, and only 9 of the signatories have ratified the convention, none from the 7-nation East African Community bloc. Goga, who was speaking at the Namanga border town, said for the protocol to come into force, it must be ratified by 15 AU member states. He said the redemarcation of the boundaries of African countries stemmed from the fact that they are a source of conflict.
Now, Zimbabwe's government on Tuesday announced a sudden end of blackouts that have crippled businesses and left millions of households without electricity for up to 19 hours a day. Now, the Information Ministry said a cabinet meeting had noted with satisfaction that the power utility has announced the end to load shedding as a result of interventions implemented by government. The statement did not give details of the steps taken to end the load shedding. The Southern African country has for years been reeling under severe power shortages. They worsened late last year when the main electricity supply, a hydro plant at the giant Kariba Dam in the north, suffered very low water levels caused by recurring droughts.
Now, South Sudan to hold first election since independence. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has said the country's long-delayed elections will be held next year as planned. President Kiir said he would run for re-election in the polls, the first since the country gained independence. No other candidate has declared their candidacy, but first Vice President Riek Machar is also expected to run. Kiir has been president since independence in 2011 after a long-running civil war, but conflict continued even after independence. Civil war broke out in 2013 when the president fell out with Machar. A power-sharing agreement was signed between the warring parties in August 2018 in a bid to bring the 5-year civil war to an end. The mandate of the transitional government, which is due to end in 2022, was extended to allow the leaders to address challenges with the implementation of the peace agreement. On Tuesday, Mr. Kerr said those challenges would be addressed before the elections set for December next year.
And Spanish police announced on Tuesday the dismantling of an organization that smuggled more than 200 Syrian or Algerian migrants into Spain from Algeria. A transnational criminal network which brought Syrian and Algerian migrants into the EU has been dismantled, led from Libya and Spain. It had cells in Sudan, Liberia and Algeria, police said in a statement. Now 15 people were arrested in southern Spain as part of this operation carried out in collaboration with Europol and the German and Norwegian authorities. 13 were remanded in custody. The investigation determined that this organization, which also engaged in drugs and armed trafficking, had brought more than 200 migrants from Spain and from Algeria to Spain in very fast boats piloted by armed individuals. She asked between 7,000 and 20,000 euros per person for crossing the Mediterranean, said the police. The organization took care of Syrians wishing to reach Europe in their country and provided them with papers and visas to take them to Libya via Sudan or Lebanon and then to Algeria. That brings us to the end of our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Now, chiefs and war veterans are getting mining titles ahead of Zimbabwe's August 23 election. Talent Gore will be breaking down that story and others after the break.
The Agenda is a weekly national affairs interview program hosted every Sunday by Namibian Sun editor Toyvon Jabela, featuring a panel of high-profile newsmakers, analysts and experts. The Agenda aims to reach high-end news consumers seeking informed understanding of national issues. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com and the Namibia Media Holdings Facebook platform. The Agenda focuses on interviews where we put the nation in the hot seat. Contact Agenda at synergy.com.na to get your product and service in the hot seat. The Agenda, focused on today's conversation.
As promised earlier, we'll now be taking a trip to Zimbabwe to speak to Talent Gore as she updates us on all the news-making headlines that side. Good morning, Talent.
Good morning, Diana, and good morning, Astrid, and Africa, good morning.
So let's get into your first story. Government blocks Harare municipalities' US dollar billing. What is that all about?
Yes, well, the Zimbabwean government has blocked the Harare municipality's plans of billing residents in United States dollars. The government said that it was unlawful for the municipality to start charging its rates in United States dollars exclusively. Well, this comes after everything else in Zimbabwe is now being charged in United States dollars, given that the Zimbabwean dollar doesn't have much value anymore. Inflation has been skyrocketing in Zimbabwe, and to try and deliver services effectively, the municipality suggested and they told residents that they could now also pay in United States dollars, so that the council can be able to buy chemicals, can be able to buy everything that is needed for them to maintain Harare in United States dollars. The council is saying that we are buying everything else in United States dollars, so now we also need to start charging our services in United States dollars. But the government has since blocked that decision, saying that it was unlawful for a municipality to start charging in United States dollars. They should take local currency. Apparently, everything else in Zimbabwe is now being charged in United States dollars. Take, for example, passports. You have to pay 120 United States dollars to to get your passport, and they are blocking the city council. So city council is saying that it is not fair that government is blocking us from charging residents in United States dollars when the government is charging its services in United States dollars.
All right. Now, moving on to the next story, Sean Williams is being nominated for ICC Player of the Month. However, unfortunately, after a really wonderful campaign, Zimbabwe will not be qualifying for the Cricket World Cup in India. Please get into that.
Yes, well, apparently Zimbabwe will not be qualifying for the ICC Cricket World Cup in India later this year, but Sean Williams has been nominated as one of the people of the ICC Player of the Month. Well, this comes after Sean has been recognized for his individual exploits after being named amongst the nominees for the ICC Men's Player of the Month award. It was a month to remember for Sean Williams, who was a shining light for Zimbabwe, even as they fail to earn a spot in the 50 over World Cup at the end of the year. The 36-year-old veteran helped himself to 3 centuries at the ICC Men Cricket World Cup qualifiers tournament at home soil. So Sean has been nominated for the ICC Player of the Month, but Zimbabwe will not be attending the 50 over World Cup later in the ICC Cricket World Cup later this year in India.
Well, what a bummer, but we do hope that he actually wins a Player of the Month. Now, closing off your top stories, chiefs and war veterans get mining titles ahead of the August 23rd general elections. What a tactic, huh?
Yes, that is what everyone else is saying. But the government has granted authority for traditional leaders and war veterans to acquire mining titles as part of efforts to broaden the participation of communities in the mining sector. Well, this is according to the government. They announced this on Tuesday during a cabinet briefing. But citizens, political activists are saying that this is a tactic, given that they are now granting the mining titles to the war veterans and chiefs ahead of the August 23 elections. Political activists and opposition parties, they are saying that the ZANU-PF government is trying to lure war veterans and chiefs, and they are trying to make sure that they do not lose votes, given that for the better part of the last 5 years, war veterans have been complaining that they were not getting their monies. They have not been compensated enough, given that they are the ones who fought for independence, and now the government suddenly has decided to grant them mining titles. So the opposition party is saying that the ZANU-PF government is now playing tactics to gain votes during the August 23 elections.
I think the only thing I would find disingenuous about the opposition saying that would be them saying ZANU-PF is now playing tactics. If we can dial back to Robert Mugabe losing political confidence in Zimbabwe and then starting the grabbing of farms, which was also directed to the beneficiaries being the war veterans of Zimbabwe. So as far as political journeys go, this has been ZANU-PF's modus operandi, and hopefully some people may be swayed by service delivery as opposed to privilege. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news stories.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. Let's go have a look at the weather predictions.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Let's get into the economic news stories. We swing back to Zimbabwe as Zimbabwe is considering exporting surplus wheat to Mozambique from this year's anticipated harvest of 420,000 tons, well above the country's requirements of 360,000 tons a year. Last year, a record harvest of over 375,000 tons was achieved after planting wheat on 80,000 hectares, and that created homegrown carryover stocks. But after scaling up the hectareage to 86,000 this year due to the various progressive interventions by the government led by President Mnangagwa, there are hopes of an even higher output in the region of 420,000 tons this year. Speaking during a wheat field day at Mema Estates in Banket, Mashonaland West recently, Secretary for Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development, Dr. John Basera, said farmers should take advantage of massive markets that are in Mozambique to increase output. Conflicts in Eastern Europe have taught Africa to look more inward since Russia and Ukraine control 30% of global wheat supply, but the product cannot move seamlessly from those countries due to disturbances.
Now, Nigeria paused to save $28 billion after ending fuel subsidies. Nigeria will save more than 21 trillion naira, which is approximately $28 billion in 2 years, after scrapping gasoline subsidies and allowing its currency to weaken, according to the World Bank. The savings will help President Bola Tinubu's government cut its record fiscal deficit and a debt service burden that surpassed revenue in 2022, the Washington-based lender said in a report. The budget shortfall will narrow to 3.9% of gross domestic product by 2025 from 5.1% this year, according to the report. Scrapping the fuel cap will enable Nigeria's state oil company to export crude instead of setting it aside to pay for the subsidies. Easing foreign exchange controls will help the government convert overseas earnings at market prices rather than at overvalued rates, the bank said. It forecasts Africa's biggest economy will expand 4% from 2024 should it implement urgently required reforms.
That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Now, just before Adi Hohad comes through with the sports package, here are your indicators.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news and starting off with tennis news first. It's Wimbledon currently on the way. That is in England, one of the four majors on the tennis calendar. The best men's and women's players playing there. Still early in the tournament. First round game still being completed at the moment in week one. News from the men's side is that number one seed Carlos Alcaraz safely flew in the first round. He beat Jeremy Gasby and that was by 7 in 3 sets. It was 7-5 in the third set. Also, Cameron Norrie of Great Britain, he's through. He beat Thomas Marchette of Chesney. That was in 4 sets. And then one of the favourites of the Wimbledon tournament, because he is from Britain, he's from Scotland, that is Andy Murray. Andy Murray beat Ryan Peniston. He beat him by 6-3, 6-love and 6-1. That's his teammate from Great Britain. So Andy Murray, a previous winner at Wimbledon, through to the second round. In the women's side of the draw, it is number 2 and 3 seeds in the women's section that is safely through to the next round. There's first round action. It is Arena Sabalenka. She is number 2 seed. She beat Panna Unvardi of Hungary, and the score there was 6-3 and 6-1. And then also number 3 seed, she's the defending champion. That is Ilana Rybakina. She beat Shelby Rogers by 4-6, 6-1 and 6-2. Shelby Rogers is from the United States. And Southern African interest, it's Ons Shabir of Tunisia. She's the number 6 seed. She's carrying the hope of Africa, and Ons Shabir also won, and she's through to the second round at Wimbledon 2023. Moving on to soccer news or football news, and some more players that is moving over to the Saudi Arabian League. There's lots of money there, and looks like they are taking lots of players and also coaches from the English Premier League. The latest player to confirm is a former Liverpool player, that is Roberto Firmino. He's off to play for Al Ahly, that is in the Saudi Arabian League, and he will be playing there for the next 3 seasons. That's a 31-year-old midfield player from Brazil. Also going to Al Ahly in the Saudi Arabian League is the former goalkeeper from Chelsea, that is Edouard Mendy, and he will also join Roberto Firmino at Al Ahly. Not only is it players moving over to the Saudi Arabian League, it's also coaches, and it is the former Liverpool player and former Aston Villa coach, that is Steven Gerrard. He confirmed that he will join Al Attifali, and that is also to coach them from the new season. And also in the English Premier League, it's confirmed that Mason Mount, he's a big signing for Manchester United. That's confirmed that he will leave Chelsea, and it's Manchester United that bought him for £55 million. On to rugby news next, and it is this coming Saturday. It is the start of the Rugby Championship Internationals. It is the Springboks playing against Australia in Pretoria. But the injury-forced change that had to be made by the Springboks, it is Ox Nche. He's got a pectoral muscle injury, and that will keep him out of Saturday's test. And he will also not be able to play in the rest of the Rugby Championship games. He's been replaced by Steven Kitshoff. He is the captain of the Stormers. Very experienced loose head to call on. So that test, it is the Springboks against Australia this coming Saturday at 5 p.m. in Pretoria. Closing off today's international sports news with golf news, that is the British Open that's coming up on the 20th of July. That will be at Royal Liverpool, and it is news from the tournament is that very experienced player, that is Sergio Garcia, failed to qualify for the tournament. It's the first time in 25 years that he will not be playing in the tournament. He didn't qualify for the tournament because he's currently playing in the Live Golf Breakaway League, the Saudi Arabian-backed league. So he went through a qualifying tournament, but unfortunately missed out by 3 shots to qualify. This year it will be the 151st time the British Open will take place, and that is at Hoylake, that is Royal Liverpool, starting on the 20th of July. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
You're still watching Africa Good Morning. If you're just joining us, let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast, just in case you need a quick recap. Zuma's private prosecution of Ramaphosa set aside with costs. Deadline on Africa's contested borders nears. Zimbabwe declares its own load shedding over, but locals are skeptical. Zimbabwe eyes wheat exports to Mozambique as output rises.
Those have been our stories. Catch the repeat at 8:30, the same place you found us now, DSTV 285, GoTV 25, 1up2.com, and all Namibia Media holding social media platforms. From Diana Master and Ashwin Berry, Suresh Ranaka.